Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the Austrian Grand Prix preview, the first preview of the 2020 season. And I cannot tell you just how happy it makes me to finally be able to say that. It's been a long old wait, 7 months in fact, but Formula One is back. And what a race as well to kick off the season with. Last year, of course, the race at the Red Bull Ring was the first of a run of several awesome races that really brought the 2019 season to life. I actually watched the race back last night as a bit of a reminder, and I'd forgotten just how good that race was. We got our first proper look at the future of F1 thanks to Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen going head-to-head for the win. And what a drive by both of them, by the way. They really were in a class of their own that weekend. Leclerc, of course, managed the race almost perfectly. Verstappen, after his bad start thanks to anti-stall kicking in, made his way back through the field with some good overtaking and even managed to snatch the win from Leclerc with just a couple of laps to go. Okay, it came with a huge dose of controversy after the two made contact, but if that's what we've got to look forward to over the next decade, then I am well up for that. It wasn't all about those two though. Bottas managed to get himself on the podium, which, to be honest, given the lack of pace that Mercedes appear to have had that weekend, was actually a very solid result and some very good damage limitation too. And with Hamilton finishing in 5th, it did also help the Finn to close the gap in the Drivers' Championship to his teammate. Vettel made his way from 9th on the grid to finish in 4th, and as was the case for pretty much all of the 2019 season, the midfield gave us some fantastic scrapping, and it was also great to see the likes of Lando Norris and Kimi Raikkonen getting the opportunity to go wheel to wheel with the top 3 teams, early on at least, just for a couple of laps. And you know, if this year's Austrian Grand Prix is half as good as last year's, we are in for a real treat. But quite frankly, as much as I would love an absolutely awesome race, the most important part for me this weekend is that racing is back. For the first time in 2020 then, let's run through a few stats. So the first ever Austrian Grand Prix took place all the way back in 1970 at the famous Österreichring, with Jochen Rindt taking pole position and Jackie Ickx going on to win the race, leading home a Ferrari 1-2, finishing just ahead of teammate Clay Regazzoni. Since 1970, there have been a total of 31 races in Austria, with 13 being held around the much shorter Red Bull Ring, or as it was previously known, the A1 Ring. And across all of those years, 23 different drivers have taken victory, with Max Verstappen, of course, being the most recent driver to do so, and Alain Prost holding the record for the most wins with 3, and that is a record that Verstappen could match this weekend, so that's something to keep an eye on. 20 different drivers have managed to take pole positions since 1970, with Niki Lauda, Rene Arnoux and Nelson Piquet grabbing the most with 3 each, and that is also a record that could be equalled this weekend by either Lewis Hamilton or Valtteri Bottas. Interestingly enough though, pole position doesn't instantly equal victory, as from the 31 races held at the track, the pole sitter has only gone on to win on 9 occasions, with 14 races being won from 3rd or lower on the grid. The track itself is 4.318 kilometres long, it's been a while since I've said this, or if you would prefer, that's 2.683 miles, and consists of just 10 corners, with 3 of those being left-handers and 7 of them right. Once again, this year there will be 3 DRS zones for the drivers to take advantage of, and the race itself on Sunday will be run across 71 laps. The race lap record is still held by Kimi Raikkonen, who set a 106.957 in 2018, but the track record is actually held by Charles Leclerc, who posted a 103.003 on his way to pole position last season. There are a couple of changes to the circuit ahead of this weekend that are well worth a mention, and according to the pre-weekend document that the FIA sent out, there has been an extension added to the concrete behind the Turn 8 apex curb and to the exit curb, and the additional yellow curbs, or as we like to call them, the sausage curbs behind the exit curbs at Turn 9 and Turn 10, have all been removed and a timing loop or sensor has been installed. So they are keeping an eye on track limits, but they're going to do it with sensors rather than the cars going out onto those sausage curbs and risking damage. But despite those changes, just make sure you are ready for a lot of track limits talk this weekend. Right then, they were some of the stats, but what does a lap around the Red Bull Ring look like? Well, as I'm sure you can appreciate, I don't have an F1 car to spare and I'm not actually in Austria, so I can't show you for real. However, we do have a game, so that'll do very nicely. And here is Tom with the first track guide of the 2020 season.
Hello everyone and welcome to the first track guide of the season. My name is Tom97 and we are here for a lap of the Red Bull Ring circuit. Before we jump into it, just to mention really quickly, this lap of course is a very challenging lap, very short, just over a minute and not many corners. Therefore, the perfect lap is absolutely critical as any mistake can be punished quite heavily. So here we are then, jumping into the lap as we get ready for the start of it, and very important straight off the bat to get a very good final corner and traction up nicely out of there, opening up the DRS to begin the lap. DRS open for the first of 3 zones around here as we race up to turn 1, brake just after the 100 meter board, down to 4th gear, pick up your apex, and then easy on the throttle on the exit. Really important to get traction around here, as I mentioned before, as we now race up through the flat out turn 2 and up into the turn 3 hairpin. Once again, just after the 100, very important here to really let the car kind of open up on the exit, and you are tractioning on an uphill section, so it's really important to get that exit absolutely perfect. Then once again, DRS open for the 3rd and final time as we brake just after the 100 meter board, pretty much once again. 3rd gear, clip the inside curb to give you a little bit of extra rotation as we then get on the power and blast past through turn 4 into a sequence of double lefts to close out sector 2, and we're going to open up sector 3. Very important through this one to really use all the curb on the exit, and that will give you maximum speed along yet another straight as we now approach the final 2 corners. Down 2 gears for turn number 9, and then down another 2 gears for gear number 4 for the final corner. Important to not run too wide onto that final curb as we open DRS, and that is a lap of the Austrian Grand Prix circuit. The first lap guide of the season, and I'm sure the 2020 cars are going to be really quick around this circuit.
There you have it then. Thank you so much to Tom for sending that lap over. Obviously that was on the F1 2019 game, but we will be using the 2020 game hopefully after launch. And if you are hyped for the launch of F1 2020, then make sure you check out Tom's channel, because he's going to be putting out a lot of content around that game over the next few weeks and months. And there is a link to Tom's channel in the description down below, as well as a link to Lights Out blog, who have once again provided all the stats for this video, so thank you to them too. Moving on though, and as covered last week, the way tyres are allocated to drivers has changed for this season. Now the compounds available will still vary from race to race, but the allocation will not. So for this weekend's Austrian Grand Prix and next weekend's Styrian Grand Prix, the tyre compounds available are the hard C2, the medium C3 and the soft C4, but the allocation is the same for every single driver, and that will be the case for every race. So the drivers will each receive 2 sets of the hard tyres, 3 sets of the mediums, and a total of 8 sets of the red marked softs. Pirelli have said ahead of the weekend that they are expecting the performance gap between each compound of tyre to be quite small due to the short lap, and with the tyre stress actually being quite low around the Red Bull Ring, it is expected that we will see a one-stop race, but more on strategy on Saturday. However, if you've been keeping track of the weather, teams may well need to use some of the Pirelli wet weather tyres, as showers and thunderstorms are currently forecast at the circuit for Friday practice, but it is expected at time of recording at least that it will stay dry for qualifying and the race, but there is still a small chance of rain on Saturday. Now, as you can imagine, a lot has changed in F1 since pre-season testing, and that goes for the cars too. This weekend, most teams are set to introduce significant upgrades to their cars, with James Allison previously confirming that Mercedes will be one of them, and that looks like it's going to include an engine upgrade too. Honda will also be introducing a new power unit upgrade for the Austrian Grand Prix, and Christian Horner confirmed that Red Bull would be introducing a raft of changes to the RB16. However, Ferrari are planning to run their Melbourne spec car this weekend, but changes are set to be made in time for the Hungarian Grand Prix, with Mattia Binotto stating, "This weekend the car will run in the same configuration used towards the end of the Barcelona tests. The truth is that the outcome of the tests led us to take a significant change of direction in terms of development, especially on the aerodynamic front." Going to be interesting to see whether Ferrari genuinely are concerned or whether they are sandbagging ahead of this weekend, but we won't just see changes at the sharp end of the grid though, as teams including Renault and Williams have confirmed that they will be updating their cars, with McLaren also set to do the same. However, although most teams will introduce changes, Gunther Steiner has already confirmed that Haas will not, as the team would prefer to wait until they know just how much money they've got to play with in 2020. But long story short, most cars will look different in some way to the ones we saw in Barcelona back in February. And aside from updates to the cars, there is something else to keep an eye on over the course of this weekend, and that is that Red Bull are reportedly considering launching a formal protest against the Mercedes DAS system. And of course, that's something they were considering ahead of the Australian Grand Prix, so things haven't changed that much over the last few months. There's still plenty of politics going around, but that is a story that will develop over the next few days. Anyway, on to some predictions. As ever, don't take these too seriously, they're just a bit of fun. And if you are new to the channel, you'll soon come to realise that I'm terrible at these. Also, actually, while we're on that subject, if you are new to the channel and you'd like to hear more of me talking absolute nonsense about F1 across the course of the 2020 season, then please do consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads. There's going to be loads this weekend. Right, predictions then. It's actually quite tricky to make these predictions for this one because we've seen absolutely no racing, and therefore we have no real idea where anybody is in the pecking order. So I'm going to have to go off the driver form in Austria from the past few years, and also with my gut feeling, which is quite scary. But obviously, Verstappen has won the last two at the Red Bull Ring, and this is also a track that Bottas tends to go very well at, and not just with Mercedes. Remember 2014, when he started on the front row alongside his teammate in a Williams? I'd even argue that Ferrari have good form in Austria too, with Leclerc almost winning last year, and the team did take a double podium in 2018 too. And although he hasn't finished on the podium in Austria since winning in 2016, you never really can rule out Lewis Hamilton. But I'm going to go with Bottas for pole on Saturday, but Verstappen for the win on Sunday, with Bottas coming home in second place. Now, one thing I would love to see happen this weekend is for Alex Albon to grab his first F1 podium. I just think if he can get that done nice and early this season, it will lift some of the pressure that comes with racing for Red Bull, and he can really get his head down and get on with the rest of the year. But I'm going to be boring and play it safe, or fairly safe. As I say, he's not had the best form in Austria over the last few years, but I'm going to go with Hamilton for third to end that drought of non-podium finishes in Austria. In terms of the rest of the field though, I think Racing Point will be best of the rest this weekend. And actually, if there is any drama ahead of them, they could be outsiders for a cheeky podium. Definitely keep an eye on Racing Point this weekend. Behind them, though, who really knows? Renault seem quietly confident. You've got McLaren, who were resurgent last year, and they'll want to top that midfield again this year. And the field looks even tighter behind them. And just on that, there are so many unanswered questions ahead of this season. What difference is Das going to make? Are Red Bull serious title contenders this year? Is this Max Verstappen's best shot at a title to date? Are Ferrari bluffing, or are they really in trouble? Can Racing Point top that midfield or even threaten the top three? What is the Renault versus McLaren battle going to look like? And what about Williams and Haas? Have they been able to make any progress? It is going to be absolutely fascinating, and we should start to see some of those questions being answered this weekend, but I think we are in for a cracking season. That is it for the Austrian Grand Prix preview though, but you can let me know your thoughts ahead of the weekend down in the comments section, and for the first time this season, you can also let me know your predictions ahead of the weekend. Who do you think will take pole position on Saturday, and what about the win on Sunday, and what's your top three? Who's going to be on the podium? Now, I will be back with more content across the weekend, but in the meantime, don't forget that you can of course follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will catch you again in the next one. Bye bye.